Hello, my name is Pam McElvain. I'm the CEO of Diversity MBA Media, here with Iesha Berry, Chief Diversity and Engagement Officer and Head of Talent, Culture, and Experience from DocuSign. We're going to be having a table conversation, if you will, on DEI best practices. As you know, this is one of the series that Diversity MBA Media has been bringing to our audience in the last 3 years. So we're excited to talk to leading organizations who have very experienced practitioners that are driving strategy to share with us, particularly in this new age of this DEI environment, what's going on. And that's what's a little different for us, Iesha, is that today we're having this conversation with so much going on in the marketplace, in the political environment, in the community. So not to put you on the spot, but you're my first executive in our series of DEI best practice that we get to talk to this year about all these many challenges. But before we get started, a leader such as yourself, managing multiple dimensions and with so much going on in your regular priorities of your life, what do you do to keep yourself both physically and mentally well?
Well, one of the things that I've done, I've always been fairly active. And I will say that that continues to be an opportunity for improvement for me. But I've just begun to think about how I can listen to my body more. And that requires time of reflection, being able to just focus on what is it that I'm trying to achieve, not just professionally, but as a whole human being. We don't just operate in our professional worlds. We operate in a very multifaceted way. Every human being does. And so I am just trying to take that time to have introspection, reflection, and take care and listen to my body. The other thing that I've started to do is juicing. And so that has been a significant lift for me from an energy perspective and just feeling good overall.
Well, you know what? I'm going to take your lead because I've been doing the clean eating myself. So, I forgot about juicing, how the many nutrients and value that juicing brings. So thank you for sharing, for sharing that. And I know people may think that, we're just chatting here, but that's a real thing in terms of self-care. Yes. Right? And organizations, and I know we didn't previously talk about this, but organizations now are, viewing self-care as a priority for their workforce. You can share us a little bit about, how DocuSign is engaging their workforce in self-care.
Yes, absolutely. Our organization is committed to continuing to create meaningful experiences for our employees and doing that by driving not only engaging the employees in meaningful work, but equally being able to care for themselves. And one of the things that we have instituted, like many firms, has become a leading practice is days of rest. We find ourselves as we are working in both this hybrid nature of caring for others and doing so at the risk of not being able to also equally prioritize self. And so I am so appreciative and excited about DocuSign leaning into this approach of caring for the whole employee by affording us these days of rest like many firms are doing.
Well, I know you're saying many firms are doing it. Many firms actually put the practice out there, but how it's implemented and executed and becomes a part of the culture that they have, still a journey. So I go ahead and take your milestone and progress achievements for really leaning in and getting it done. Because I just have to tell you, that's what's there. So one of the things, Iesha, we wanted to do with this.
One thing to that?
Oh, yes, please.
I can make it personal and bring it proximate to what I do within my team, and frankly am supported by my leadership in doing so, is partnering with my team to say, when you need to take the time, create the focus time in your calendar. Like literally every day I have focus time. Now, I'm going to be honest. There are times when my day does not afford me the opportunity to focus, but knowing that there's the intentionality of creating that space and then encouraging my team to do the same and following that up through modeling it. For me, I have a focus day on Friday where I don't do meetings, and I use that as time to focus in on critical strategic work that needs to get
That's
done,
right.
furtherance of the organization. And I'm modeling that for my team as well.
Well, and that's inclusive leadership. So if you guys want to know what inclusive leadership looks like, that's what inclusive modeling looks like. And we're on, you gave me a nugget. We're on 4 days and then we're off. And I was, then everybody does their own focus time, but I'm getting ready to make that public and tell folks to put that focus time in those 4 days, 10 hours you're on. So that way, if you need that, we can respect it. I love that. That's why we're talking today. So one of the things the reason that we have these series, this is so that folks can hear, up front and go back and listen to and understand, what an organizational strategic pillars that they have and driving and integrating D&I strategy. So it's not corporate talk. I want people to know this is the work that's being done. And this is an opportunity for you to understand what some of the leading organizations are doing, still committed and invested in the DEI journey. So with that, so tell us a little bit about your organization's, strategic pillars and how DEI is integrated.
Yes, absolutely. So for us at DocuSign, our work around DEI, it was very much an intentional focus for me coming into this role, is to ensure that our work is connected to the broader business framework. And we started that by looking very specifically as our organization reimagined our values, is connecting our work back to our values, keeping our values at the core. And then also, as DocuSign has relaunched itself, reimagined our brand, relaunched our brand, and you see that visualized here in my background. Our goal is to bring agreements to life. We didn't define what type of agreement. It's all types of agreement. It's not just the signing of a document. It's about agreements and the continuum of the agreements as they evolve over time. And inevitably connected to that is this overall engaging focus on diversity. They're all different types of agreements, just like we are all different types of individuals, visibly or seen, as well as not seen. They're all different types of agreements that we agree to, whether they are signing to say we're going to join an organization, or signing for your very first house, and adding different amendments, if you will, to that contract. That's the ongoing cycle of an agreement. That being said, when I think about our diversity and inclusion pillars and our work and how we're tying that first to what we're committed to, bringing agreements to life, our values that are focused on customer focus, innovation, unity, which is where inclusion is connected, embedded, and specifically called out in our values and how we define them, and sustainability, just to name a few. Our DEI strategy is focused on 3 pillars: how we act, how we include, and how we mobilize. Our ACT pillar is focused on everything that focuses on our workforce. How do we continue to create a reflective workforce, not only reflective of the global nature of our economy, but also our customers? How are we mirroring our customers and our customers' customers to some extent? Then include is focused on our workplace. How are we creating and assessing systems, processes, programs, and instituting programs that rally our organization to foster that environment where everyone feels that who they are, every aspect of what they bring, is valued, is seen, and heard within the organization. And that comes to life through our employee resource group global program, our global inclusion speakers series, where we're bringing in external thought leadership and pouring into our employees around leading practices in various aspects of DEI, through to what we're doing around recognition, creating an environment and a culture of recognizing employees, not just top achievers, but all employees, for those things that they contribute to the advancement of DocuSign's business strategy and overall culture. And then mobilize is how do we then take what we're doing around our workforce, our workplace, and we show forth and show up as ambassadors of DocuSign, our brand, our company, and our commitments to the communities where we're activating, where we are looking to, whether we're looking to bring in talent through external partnerships like Diversity MBA, or organizations like High Tech, Hispanics in Technology, where we're connecting with organizations, or Out in Tech. So how are we connecting with those external organizations that help us to further amplify our commitments to DEI by creating pipelines of talent and using that as opportunities to create retention connections for our current employee base to show out and be advocates of our organization and ambassadors of our organization to diverse communities, both visibly diverse and those communities that are unseen diverse.
Amazing. So name, you're talking act, include, and mobilize. So well said and articulated in terms of how you're engaging and activating your strategy. But agreements to life, oh my goodness, Iesha, just safety, transparency, trust, all the things that agreements embody. And going, you're not even talking brand. You're saying, yeah, this is what we do. This is how it expands beyond, because just a little religious talking. More than two come together and agree, you've got an agreement.
Right.
So, I love the fact that you said, because I think that's kind of where we are. I mean, that's where we want to get to, where people are agreeing to move forward, agreeing to lean in. But what an incredible thing for your brand. And also the reimagining. I love the fact that you guys are leveraging curiosity and innovation. And I'd love to hear a little bit more of how now that's translated into some of the best practices with some of the work, and how you fostered equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion within the pillars that you just described, your workplace, workforce, and marketplace.
Yes. So one of the things that I'm going to point to, and while the ERGs within our organization are what I have consistently referred to as the culture carriers, they multiply our culture. But I want to highlight our program specifically from a best practices perspective, because what we did in connection to, back to your question around how do we connect DEI to the business, one of the things that we also did as we rolled out our AIM strategy, Act, Include, Mobilize, is we identified OKRs across the company. The company embraced OKRs, objectives and key results, as our process and approach to measuring our performance as a business. And connected to that were DEI, or diversity related goals. So that was the other way that we connected diversity back into the business. We aligned it to a company-wide process, not a separate one, but a company-wide process that was measured and reported quarterly. Connected with that, we have functional OKRs, and one of them was connected to our employee resource groups and growing membership and engagement 50%. So from 17% to 16% to 26%, my apologies. That was ultimately our goal, increase membership by 50%. Over the 17% that we were. By the end of our fiscal year, which just ended a few months ago, we were already at nearly 40% of our employee workforce globally serving as members of our ERGs. We were able to get to that data because we instituted what I think was and is a best practice, a model, a technology that enabled us to enable our employee resource group to measure, report, create net promoter score, understand their net promoter score, manage their financials, drive employee engagement through programs and initiatives and events, and report out on those said areas so that we continue to realize a return on investment by engaging in our employee resource groups. That technology alone allowed us to take a model that on paper was absolutely a critical aspect of our strategy to being a data-driven approach aligned to measurable results Year
Yes.
over year, we have now set the foundation where year over year, we can measure our membership growth, the net promoter score, the financial investment, and the types
Yes.
of programs that our ERGs are moving forward on behalf of our firm and connect it back to our overall DEI strategy. That's an example of a
And I have to say, and that's how it's done.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're
And,
good.
and it's not a best practice. I hate to break it to you. It's a leading practice.
Mhm.
So many organizations are not there yet, Iesha. I know you want to say this is the best, but it's a leading practice because that's the next level. You're operating at the next level because now you're not just saying, oh, we're aligning objectives and goals, but here is the actual process of metrics, ROI, ROE, all of it, just like another business function. And folks are sometimes having difficulty articulating what that looks like. You just described it. And that's the next. I'm telling everyone, that's your next. That's your next. And when more and more people are doing it, it's going to be the marketplace best practice. But right now, DocuSign is leading it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That was huge, huge
And here's one
way
thing,
to
can I
talk
do a
about
quick?
how to,
No, go ahead, Pam.
yes.
We're
No, I
having
was
a
just going to
very
say,
fluid
just, it
conversation.
was just
I do feel like I'm around your table, just so you know.
no, and you can jump in. That's what we're supposed to do. And I was just going to say, it's the way to monetize it. It's just that so many folks are struggling. Talking to so many, and I just want to say, this is you just described. This is how it's monetized as well. And I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, and one of the things that was equally important to us being DocuSign, was that in leveraging this technology, this platform that allowed us to help operationalize and more readily drive operational efficiencies around our employee resource groups, was the investment and partnership with a small business that also happened to be a MBE. So when you think about that connection to a minority business enterprise and the work that this organization that is known as Chevy has partnered with DocuSign to do, we think about also the connective and exponential impact that has on this firm. We made it a concerted effort that as we sought and assessed all of the perhaps the opportunities and technologies that were available, that was equally a goal, is how can we leverage this also as an opportunity to point to, give a nod to, and support and connect to diverse suppliers.
Appreciate that. How much that is heartfelt. And that's significant because when we're talking about the spend and the investment, it does require it to become a priority. Right?
Yes.
It has to be a business priority to do that. And so and you found a supplier that could do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
With so many saying we can't find them that can do these various things, but you actually did with the many out there. So, one of the things that you have done well is reframed, as you talked about, you guys reimagine your strategy. So you reframed it. I just want to ask a little bit about the conversation, and you might not have had to. And so maybe it just might be the approach that you've always taken with so much going on in the external environment. All of the, New York Times is calling me, Wall Street Journal. Yeah, I'm excited. All the big, I just got called the other day by a French newspaper to speak on what's happening in America. And the good news is they said, yes, tell us about companies that are doing this well. And I was so happy to hear that coming from, of course, outside of America, but an outside entity wanting to know, after all the noise, they want to hear what the good news is. And that's good. And what you're talking about is that. But do you find yourself, or did you at all have to reframe any parts of the conversation to help folks be comfortable and ensured that DocuSign has not moved away from its commitment and strategy?
Yeah. So
of investing in DEI. Mm-hmm.
So I am really pleased to say that in our CEO, Alan Tickerson, and our Chief People Officer, Jennifer Christie, and in the broader executive leadership team, they were very clear and put a stake in the ground that we remain committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our focus in continuing to drive our strategy forward. With that, we have, as an organization, taken the responsibility to equally hold a mirror to ourselves being the work that we're doing, what was planned on the roadmap, and our partnering internal in our organization to pressure test the work that is planned to move forward to ensure that we are being cognizant of the environment, but not allowing the environment to dictate what we need to do in connection to driving our goals, our strategic goals forward relative to diversity and inclusion. And so it started with our CEO and his executive leadership team making the commitment and reaffirming the commitment to staying the course with regard to our work. Second, it was equally us internally also doing the work of assessing all that we were doing with regard to DEI and ensuring that the work that we were doing did not create additional divisiveness that we're seeing play out on the external stage. Thirdly, what we're also doing, because my role has also evolved and expanded to embrace talent, what we have done as a part of developing our talent strategy is making sure that DEI is clearly embedded in our talent strategy and our focus on becoming a talent-centric organization. And how that played out, Pam, was it showed up not only in our 3 pillars, it also showed up in our vision as well as our guiding principles, which the guiding principles is how we guide and make our decisions around what we do relative to driving our talent-centric vision forward. And I'm really excited to share that one of our guiding principles is inclusion.
Yes, yes. And you know what I love? What you just used, and you didn't coin it because it was been there for decades, but you repeated it. And that's what people, I believe, seem to have forgotten. Guiding principles have been around forever, and how organizations develop core values.
Yeah.
So really bringing that back forward, and and saying boldly that inclusion is a part of that. I think we have to go back to some of the language and the words that actually work and were meaningful, and how it shows up. And you also talked about, I know there's other leaders around the table, but you talked about the 2 critical leaders, your CHRO and your CEO, that are in alignment with you. And that's one of the be honest with you, one of the major issues of conflict, and I was going to say, some insecurity that organizations are facing with today because of other competing priorities. But where you're in agreement, where agreements can come together, right, for around this. And I think the way you framed it, the way DocuSign is approaching it as a business imperative, it's really what's making the impact of it. And so thank you for sharing that. Let me ask, from a business imperative, when you're doing your metric, have you guys also, because when you quantify talent and you're able to see your ROI in talent and advancement of everyone in the organization, are you finding yourself now mobilizing your emerging leaders, and particularly with 40%, approaching 50% of your workforce a part of ERGs, the mobility, internal mobility of emerging talent is becoming, the pipeline the next in the talent evolution, in where organizations need to ensure they have their existing workforce ready. What are a couple of the strategies that you guys have are looking at to ensure that continuum can happen?
Yeah, so we are taking a very multifaceted approach. I'll take you back to the point that I made earlier around our talent strategy and our vision around being focused on being a talent-centric organization and the guiding principles of our talent strategy, one of which being inclusion. But another component of our strategy is equally about mobility and creating the career framework, if you will, where our employees can understand how they grow both horizontally and laterally within the organization. And so to your point around emerging leaders, one of the things that we are doing in a multi-pronged approach is equally through our ERGs, we are leveraging and dedicating a portion of our investment in creating opportunities for their ongoing development, not just as ERG leaders, but as leaders first, as talent first within the organization, and taking the title, whether you're emerging, entry, senior, mid, taking the title off of that, it is investing in the individual as talent first. And so that's one of the ways that we're thinking about addressing, not thinking, but also addressing the emerging leader population. Also, through partnership with our learning, leadership, and organizational development organization, we are getting ready, we're on the impetus of launching development programs for diverse talent segments, and taking those programs from not just being focused on, if you will, that senior leader, senior director and above, but we're taking it further down into the organization and being able to address that next generation of leader. And that is how we're creating that pipeline to senior level leadership, by investing in that next level leader, or as you refer to, that emerging leader, through focused leadership development offering and programmatic evolutions and offerings in the organization.
See, I like that, because I mean, cascading leadership, right? And meeting people where they are, meeting the talent where they are. I like that. I didn't coin it. I can't tell you who coined it, but I leverage it a lot, and I have defined it and created a curriculum around it. But advancing the critical middle. I don't like frozen middle, but they're the critical middle, and the emerging folks, leaders of development that are around them. And I love talent-centric organizations, and maybe that's where organizations have to lean in. If they're not sure what to do or how to do it, they have to lean into doing that. So thank you for clearly articulating the mobility. I think we have, I know, I have a couple of questions. Oh my goodness. I have a few more things I want to talk about. Well, real quickly though, I just want to talk about how are you viewing, the talent pipeline externally, that young, that high school, as they get to college. What is your a quick, highlights of how you guys approach that? Because that's where, again, employers are having a hard time there too, being consistent in that tapping of that pipeline.
Yeah. So what we are doing, and I'm going to pivot specifically on how we're doing it through our talent acquisition strategy and approach, is today we are leveraging external partnerships with organizations like Cold Path, Color Stack, which are organizations that will tap into, if you will, that early in career, or give us access to that early in career talent. And the way that we're investing is not just about hiring that talent, but preparing that talent to work, whether it's with DocuSign or other organizations. We are taking a very corporate citizen approach, where we're doing it for the good of the industry, not just for the good of DocuSign. So being able to realize that benefit of investing through mentorship, career lab, resume review, mock interviewing. These are the ways that we are investing in growing, developing that next generation of early career talent. And we're also in early discussions, and it really is discussions, ideation sessions with my team and my organization around how do we think about the non-traditional talent as sources of technical talent for our organization as well.
Excellent. I mean, and that's exactly right where organizations are. And I'm glad to hear you are thinking about the non-traditional, because apprenticeships and those programs are coming back now. And investing in infrastructure in high schools. And the way you're thinking about it is right, it's the ESG, it's the sustainable marketplace, the sustainable next gen. So kudos to you guys for that. Well, as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you to provide our audience, particularly our leaders, what would you say they should be thinking about in terms of preparing for the next? I'm leaving the landscape wide open. But as you're reflecting and you're planning and executing, what should you think about? Not everything, but just, what's a thought or two, a nugget or two that they should be considering, not just diversity leaders, but just leaders in general in terms of preparing for the next.
Yeah, so let me make it very focused and proximate to our organization. In this example, leaders should be thinking about as they evolve their organization. DocuSign is now leveraging a suite of platform offerings known as DocuSign IAM, Intelligent Agreement Management. And a critical piece of moving us toward not just the rebranding of the organization, but this launch of a new category was looking at this program holistically, not just from the sales perspective or the customer-centric, customer engagement perspective or the pricing perspective, but also the talent and people perspective. Leaders need to be thinking about what is the talent that needs to occur as an organization is launching into the new, as an organization is, if you will, reimagining who they are, what they do, and their North Star. DocuSign's approach to doing that, as we have launched ourselves, was being able to create a focused body of work around talent and people readiness, and having our leaders say and make the commitment that as equally as important as it was to launch this new category, market the new category, develop the product suite and applications associated with this product, it was equally important to pay attention to the talent and people experience. Leaders need to always be thinking about not just the innovation of what the organization reflects, the product, but equally seeing that as mission critical to bringing the employees along to create a differentiated experience that they embrace and see themselves as a part of the change that's happening and drive the accountability for being part of the change that's necessary.
Thank you for that example, because that also speaks to your influence and the ability to show up and share how your organization actually is moving holistic leadership forward through all the different areas. So Iesha, thank you so much. With me this afternoon, Iesha Berry, Chief Diversity and Engagement Officer and Head of Talent, Culture, and Experience from DocuSign, as you hear, one of our leading organizations in all areas. Thank you so much for your expertise, your commitment, and clearly your work in this field.
Pam, absolutely a pleasure. Thanks so much for all you do.
Okay. Kendall, did you